And good morning, everybody. You are listening to Rebel Religion in the News, or perhaps you're watching our podcast. I'm Jerry O'Lennon. I am joined by Pastor Alfredo Romero of Rock of Life Fellowship. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning.
A story that's really based out of Chico, California. We learned about it yesterday, apparently over the weekend. Bob Mulholland passed away. For those who don't know, if you're into politics in the city of Chico or Butte County, you certainly are aware of Mr. Mulholland, a well-known local veteran, a decorated war veteran, in fact, a superdelegate for California's Democratic Party. He died on Sunday. He was 78 years old. And just to tell you a little bit about him, he was very, very dedicated to helping, not just to the Democratic Party, but as a veteran. He did so much to help veterans organizations. He was recognized for his role as a political operative for the Democratic Party. He was a super delegate that was elected to the executive board of the California Democratic Party, one of 19 statewide members of the Democratic National Committee. He served for, from 1992 until 2020 on the Democratic National Committee. I will tell you, I interviewed him probably 24 times.
Wow.
He was a very interesting, colorful personality. He's somebody who knew what he was talking about. You could have a conversation with him. He knew history. And he was a partisan. There was no question. He was a Democrat through and through. No matter who the candidate was, it seemed like he was going to support the person who had the D in front of his or her name. But I will tell you that he was a very good man from what I could tell. And I always enjoyed engaging with him and talking politics with him. And he would bring up things in history that happened 60, 70 years ago. He was just an interesting man. And one of the things he was most proud of was his service in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. He was part of the elite 101st Airborne, known as the Screaming Eagles. And this was a source of immense pride for him. And after he retired, he dedicated his time to raising awareness and raising money to support U.S. service members across all military branches. He was an interesting man and a good man. And I knew that he was a believer. And I was so saddened to hear this, because I will tell you, he was one of the first people I met when I moved into Chico back in 2005. One of the very first people I interviewed, him and his wife, Jane Dolan, who survives him. She was a member of the Butte County Supervisors, and also, I believe, a city councilwoman as well, who served for like 30 years in our area. I don't know what else to add to this other than it made me very sad to hear that he passed on, and I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss he was never afraid to voice his opinion. He was not somebody who hid in a hole. He came out and he engaged people. He listened to, and that's one of the things I want to talk real quick, and I think you would appreciate this most about him, Pastor, is that he listened to what other people had to say before giving his opinion.
This guy sounds like a real mover and shaker. I did not really know a lot about him.
You knew of him.
I knew of him, right? But I never met him. And as a Democrat, I'm kind of an independent, so I never really paid attention to what he was doing or what the Democratic Party was doing here.
I will tell you that he was not somebody to be trifled with. Republicans did not like him. He played to win. And sometimes some people viewed it as dirty politics. He didn't quite see it that way. So if you were to talk to people who had R's in front of their name, they probably wouldn't have as nice of things to say about him, because he played to score a W in every single campaign. And I will tell you, here's an interesting story. Recently, we did a story on, they had a function for the anniversary of something, and there was a breakfast. And he tried to make it political. Okay, yeah, and the veterans were there, and he said, "Well, we're lucky we're having this because the way government's going, there's probably going to be closing this down. There's not going to be funding." He gave one of those things, and I said, "Bob, we're not doing politics today. We're going to talk about the service members and the sacrifices they made. And he nodded his head and said, I agree with you. You're right.
Oh, good, good,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, see, the only thing that bothers me, and this is kind of my personal opinion, about somebody who's got a D or an R, a libertarian, an L or I, whatever, green, G, this is what bothers me. There's two sides to it. Now, this is Christian views on this show, and we also talk about what the secular views are, but obviously we come from a Christian foundation. So it always bothered me when people ask me, well, how do you vote? How do you vote? How do you vote? How do you determine how you vote? Okay, well, from my Christian values, I look at all the candidates, and I look at all the topics, all the platforms, all the different things that you care about, the different issues, and I see, and I've told you this before, I see who checks the most Jesus boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if one candidate out of 15, they have 10, and everybody else has 2 or 3, I'll tend to go with the person that checks the most Jesus boxes. Now, for somebody that's not a believer, like, I don't know what Mulholland's views were, but that's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is somebody that's not a believer, they should vote for, this is my opinion, they should vote for whatever the good of the people. Now, is it possible for a person with a D in front of their name to go, the R's have a much better plan? Or if you're an R and, can you say, well, in these couple of subjects, the D's have a much better plan? To me, it just seems like people would be more objective and not about the issues and not about just who they belong to. Now, to me, that makes sense.
Well, I think the thing that I think we talk about, and I think we discussed this involving the Charlie Kirk assassination, is the ability to talk without getting angry and hear each other out, and then counter have a counter argument, and that's one of the things that Bob did. He would want to hear what you have to say. But he would always want to have no, he wouldn't always have the last word. I got to take that back. There'd be a lot of times we would say, well, wait a minute, what about this? He said, well, that's a good point, but come on, I'm a Democratic Party Democrat through and through, and that's just the way he was. But he was I guess what's before a baby boomer? What generation is that? I don't know, whatever it was. He was a good 13, 12 years younger than me.
Yeah.
When he passed at 78, but. I always appreciated, and it just goes for everybody. I always appreciated people who, if they got into a discussion, had a reservoir of knowledge to pull from, to have a discussion. Sometimes when I talk to young people, wherever they are, they don't, and it's not their fault. They don't have. So I'll always win a debate. Okay,
because you have a different perspective, a more mature, wiser perspective.
But that's part of it. Not that I'm necessarily smarter than they are, or you're smarter than they are.
But I mean, it comes from experience, and
you have a deeper reservoir of knowledge to pull from. You could go back and say, but I remember in 1974 this happened, in 1967, because you were alive and you know what happened. You
experienced it.
And that was kind of the way Bob Mulholland was. He knew so much about history that he could always, to help bolster his arguments, he would have facts. And even if you disagreed with him or whether you agreed with him, you had to admire the fact that he knew what he was talking about. Yeah. And I guess maybe one of the lessons, and we're going to draw, we got about another 3 minutes left in this segment, but I think one of the things that we should learn from somebody, not necessarily Bob Mulholland, but people like Bob Mulholland, is before you get into these tit for tats and these arguments, know what you're talking about. Be able to defend what you're saying and thinking. And that's what I think I admired most about Bob. But even more than that, what he did for service veterans. I mean, he spent his weekends going to places. He would call me up and say, I got a news story for you because the veterans aren't getting treated properly at the Veterans Care Unit or whatever it may be. And I'm like, okay. So he was always thinking in terms of helping those who he served with. And I can tell you the immense pride he had in being a part of the 101st Airborne, which was a very elite branch of the U.S. Army, was something that really, he would always wear his hat and his badge and his medals, and he was very proud of that. And he served our country. And so I think all you can do is just say, admire what Bob Mulholland did, as even though you may have disagreed with him, admire the fact that he came prepared, that he knew what he was talking about before he opened his mouth. And I think that's one of the lessons that all of us should take from someone, not just from Bob, but from somebody like Bob. Know what you're talking about. Have some idea, have some knowledge. It's good to have an opinion, but an opinion that is not based on facts is not a good opinion. I don't know if you see it the same way.
No, I do. Matter of fact, I think two things. The first problem with a lot of I'm going to sound really old right now. You know what the problem with the youth is nowadays?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is like I've been around long enough too, and a lot of these people they call it groupthink. They just repeating these mantras, these phrases that they have no idea about. I've seen a lot of the man in the street thing at some of the protests, and whatever political side you're on. I think Jerry's right about this. You need to really deeply know what you're talking about. So some of the protests are going on. They walk. They have these signs say "River to the Sea." Excuse me, can you tell me what "River to the Sea" means? And they go, "Well, it just means they need their own land." I'm going, "No, that's not what it means at all."
Yeah.
So they repeat these talking points, fascist, and I'm not trying to get political. I can on both sides, or all sides. Sometimes they just don't. They just repeat something. You ask, "What does that mean?" And they don't know. Now the other side of this too, as a Christian, as a believer. They call it apologetics. If you have a debate with somebody or just a discussion with somebody, you need to have the information to have a calm, reasonable, rational discussion.
Before we go off to the break, I do want to. There's a great epitaph, I think, provided by the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 125, on the passing of Bob Mulholland. They write, Bob was the voice for many and the voice of the disabled American veterans, Chico Chapter 125. He was our advocate and close friend. Bob recently brought me coffee in our Veterans Weekly Time from the Vietnam Consulate in Washington, D.C. Another says, he was an advocate and advisor to all things we do as veterans, a true role model. His service to community and fellow veterans may never be matched by another.
Wow.
Bob Mulholland, 78 years old, passes away over the weekend. Our prayers are with Jane Dolan, his wife, and may God rest his soul. We'll be
Amen.
right back.
Hey, welcome back to Rebel Religion in the News. Hey, we just take the news of the day and we talk about it, and we come from it from a Christian point of view. Just where is God in all this? Okay, a few days ago we were talking about the passing of Diane Keaton.
We were, yes.
Yeah, and we were saying when somebody that you admired or somebody that you're an actor or a celebrity or something, when they pass, there's this period of time of a celebration of their life and a time of mourning. And after a couple weeks or so, it's like, okay, let's go on.
Couple days, not even a couple of weeks.
Couple of days.
Yeah.
Well, somebody passed away a couple of days ago, and it's somebody that I admired as celebrity. And I don't know how many people are going to know this, but Ace Frehley.
I'm assuming he's a member of a rock band because
Yes.
I know you very well.
Yes, he was the lead guitar player, the spaceman costume for the band Kiss. That was very popular in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, he was playing here recently, just about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I believe it was one of the casinos here or something. And I was going to go because I admired this guitar player for years and years. And what happened was I don't want to go because, frankly, I love his music and I love his guitar playing, but he struggled with alcohol abuse and drug abuse for years. It's just not what he used to be. And I said, but it's also the crowd that was there. I go, don't know if I want to put him. He's pretty hard rock. And, that's kind of my old life. And I passed on it. Well, a month ago, right after the concert here, he fell down in the studio, hit his head, and he was having issues after that. And he basically died a few days ago of a brain bleed. But Ace Frehley was he was very inspirational to guitar players back in the 70s. He had a fun, great personality. But then this is the point of all this. When Diane Keaton had passed away, we mentioned when somebody that's a celebrity that passes away, it used to be, but now it's kind of like, boy, I hope they were saved.
Yeah.
I hope they had a relationship with God because while they were living, they made an impact on you for whatever reason because you admired their acting skills or their musician skills or whatever it may be.
And you want them to be, and you want to see them in heaven.
I want to see him in heaven. I was reading the articles, because I've seen a lot of interviews. Man, I used to watch his, even probably just the last few months, I've seen a lot of his interviews. But here's the point. As I was reading drastically, what was his religion in the final days? What was his faith? What do you believe in? All I could take out of it was he was surrounded by his family and friends. Mm-hmm. It was a slow passing, but It was a calm peace. We had people praying around him. We go, prayer. There was prayer.
And when we see people, I always remember my father when he would see someone pass away. It reminded my father of his own mortality.
Oh yeah.
He said, all these people are passing away that I remember when I'm in my youth. And it's a reminder that the Grim Reaper is going to be knocking on your door and my door at any moment.
Yeah.
And we never know when that door is going to be knocked. And I think we don't, especially when you're young, it's understandable. You're not even thinking about that. But the reality is, I'm wondering if you think that we do enough to remind our kids, to remind our youth that life is fleeting and it could come and go in a drop of a hat.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, people that I admire. Well, Ace Frehley was only he's 74 years old, and that's pretty young. And he would have kept going. And he actually, considering his drug and alcohol problems of the past, he was doing okay, and he's still making albums and things. But then I started feeling a little bit. I don't know if it's guilty or remorseful, but why don't I pray for these people while they're alive? I want to pray for his salvation because he's just a guy, just like us. God doesn't look at anybody. Well, it's Ace Frehley. He was one of the best guitar players. I'm going to give him special. No, he doesn't have that type of favoritism. He's a respecter of all people. So why wasn't I praying for these people that I would admire? All people, especially the ones I was admiring, and pray for their salvation. And I don't know. It made me feel a little guilty. Why I didn't pray for him? So,
Right. When I hear this, I think about lately I've been saying the most simplest prayers when I go to sleep at night. And I take me back to when I was 6 years old. And when you're on your knees and you don't even fold your hands, you put your hands together like in a clapping, and like when you're a child. And I actually said to lay me down to sleep.
yeah,
Prayer.
yeah. Why not?
The simplest prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. May God guard me through the night and wake me with the morning's light. There's a more morbid one. If I should die before I wake.
They changed that a few years
They've
ago. Quite a
changed
few years
that
ago.
because
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I could understand why, but still, sometimes when I think when we pray and it's a reminder. I like the more morbid prayer, believe it or not, for that very reason, because when kids need to learn, if I should die before I wake,
I
I
pray
pray
the
my
Lord.
Lord my soul
Yeah,
will take.
yeah.
And so that's what made me think of that, because I think when we think when we're young that there's not a chance that we're going to die for another 60 or 70 years. And I think maybe I don't think it's morbid to tell our young children that life is fleeting, that it could end at any time. And
Sure.
and not too much with the kids. I understand that. But and maybe I'm being too dramatic here. Maybe it's not good to let kids know too soon about the possibility of death. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I remember when my kids were little, and now I have grandkids. I mean, I know the 3, 4, 5 ages. I'm maybe not, but as soon as they get around that double digits, that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and this is the way it works, folks. I'd rather inform my kids before they're informed in school, because by the time they get to school, kids are talking about dying and death and sex and. My parents are divorced. Are your parents divorced? No, my parents aren't divorced yet. Blah, blah, blah. And so I'd rather talk to them about some of the harder issues once they get past that 6, 7. I mean, once they get to about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because by that time they're pretty smart. And I'd rather teach them at home than they hear it at school.
Yeah. They always say death is the great equalizer. It is, but whatever I think for you, it's rock musicians.
Yeah.
For me, it's baseball players.
Ah.
So when I heard that Tom Seaver passed, I'm like, oh, Tom Seaver passed. Bob Gibson's gone.
Yeah.
Joe Morgan. I have all his baseball cards. I have his rookie card. He played for the Houston Colt 45s. He can't be dead.
Yeah.
And all these ball players that I remember, and I just loved watching in the '60s, and they pass on, and we think, look at it, and it makes you realize how short time is. And you're absolutely right. I don't think anybody has mentioned Tom Seaver's name in the last. I mean, he's been gone for a couple of years now, Bob Gibson, the Bullet Bob, Don Drysdale, all of these wonderful players are gone. The one that's going to hit me is, and I hope it's a long way from now. Was my childhood hero. Oh, I don't want to curse him, but
Sure, sure.
so Nolan Ryan was my childhood hero. Well, he's up in his 70s now, and my son was named after Nolan Ryan. His first name is Ryan, and so yeah, I understand what you're saying. Is that even and all of these people, no matter how famous you are, no matter how well known you are, no matter what you've done, you will be forgotten. You will be forgotten.
Yeah.
Generations will not remember you. Maybe your immediate family will. I mean, I still think about my dad, but when I die, no one's going to think about my dad and mom. That'll be it.
Yeah, and think about as each generation passes. I think it takes about 2 generations
Yeah.
for somebody to be forgotten. Like my kids know, because of my tastes in music, my kids all know about Rod Stewart and Queen and the ones that.
But it's still not the same passion that you have.
No, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. But for me, I don't want to jinx anybody or whatever.
Right. I don't
But for me, I was devastated when Elvis Presley died. I was 15. I was devastated when Freddie Mercury died in 1992 because he was pretty much one of my favorites. I saw them in person, everything. But Rod Stewart, I've seen this guy in concert 24 times, and just as recently as last year, and I just loved his music because you know how music is that soundtrack of your life, right? And even sports can be that pivotal moment in your life. I used to see, I used to be a big Laker fan before LeBron James, but
Yeah, me too.
I haven't watched him in years. I'll watch him when he's gone, when he retires. But those like when Magic Johnson found out he was sick and ill with HIV, that was devastating to me.
Yeah, it was.
Just devastating, and these pivotal things, and when people pass away, I'm like, oh no. It really is impactful because all of a sudden you get this flashback of memories in your life. Like when Diane Keaton passed away, you remembered all her movies.
Right. Diane Keaton kind of hit me hard because I don't want to say a crush, but yeah, I found her to be a charming woman.
Yes.
And just an interesting flighty personality. And to think that what happened here, and also going back to what we just started with, because I want to finish where we started the show with Bob Mulholland of Chico, who passed away at the age of 78 over the weekend. Is that in both of these cases, and almost in many of these cases, age happens slowly, and then it happens very fast. And it seemed like that's what happened with Diane Keaton and with Bob, who apparently he'd been sick, but he was doing well. He was involved in a community function over the weekend.
Yeah.
He was playing. He had nothing. He had no idea that this was going to happen. Neither did his wife. Neither did anybody. So when I heard this, it really struck me. And I do want to finish off by reminding ourselves that Bob Mulholland's funeral arrangements have not yet been planned. He is certainly one of the. He is, whether you agreed with him or not, a giant, an absolute giant in the community of Chico. One of the people who will go down in history of this city as a giant. And so with that, may God rest his soul. And I think, are we almost out of time? I think we have another.
Just about. Well,
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, pray for those people, even though you may not know them. Just pray for because we're a Christian view. Pray for
Right.
their salvation.
And he was a member of our community.
Yeah.
And an important one at that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Take good care. So long.
Rebel